Okay. Good morning and welcome to the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for the Village of East Hampton, Friday, February 12th. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We have the minutes from January 8th, 2021. I'd like a motion, please.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have three determinations, I believe, from the previous meeting that we have, and I'll read the findings, and you can look online to look at the full determination at Village Hall. In the application of Gary and Muriel Kravitz, 2 Baiting Hollow Road, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 8-10-29.3. Excuse me. I don't know who's talking, but can you please mute yourselves? Thank you. To construct a single-family residence and accessory improvements is approved. Ms. Bennett?
Mr. McGurk?
Yes.
Mr. McMullen?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connell?
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Yes.
Mr. Rose?
Yes.
The second, in the application of Emery and Linda Gunlap at 149 Main Street, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 8-3-18 to construct pool equipment, AC condenser units, and outdoor shower is approved. Ms. Bennett?
Mr. McGurk?
Yes.
Mr. McMullen?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connell?
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Yes.
Mr. Rose?
Yes.
Okay, and the last one, in the application of Georgica Road LLC, 47 Georgica Road, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 8-12-11.1, to permit a residence that precedes allowable gross floor area to remain on a parcel of land that will be reduced in size pursuant to a lot line modification is approved. Ms.
Mr.
Bennett?
McGurk?
Yes.
Mr. McMullen?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connell?
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Yes.
Mr. Rose?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to move on to, we do have an application to be renoticed. Eric and Lori Blatstein, 211 Lily Pond Lane. So Ms. Bennett, you'll be doing that, I assume.
Yes.
Thank you. Request for adjournments, Daniel Farber and Rochelle Shaw, JABR LLC, 64 WE Acquisitions LLC, Under One Roof LLC. Can I have a motion?
So moved. Motion.
Second?
Aye.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, on to our continued hearing for Lily Pond Lane Equities, 33 Lily Pond Lane. It's the applicant.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
With respect to the Lily Pond Equities application, this is Lenny Ackerman. On January 26th, we submitted a letter which set forth the basis for our application for relief. And with respect to the concern of the board as to the issuance of a covenant, we believe a covenant with respect to enclosing the proposed.
Len, can you speak up a little bit?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Sorry.
No, let me just release this. Our January 26th letter outlined our legal position with respect to res judicata and the impact of the 2005 application. In addition, concern and issue was raised with respect to a proposed covenant not to enclose the proposed porch. Our position is that such a covenant is inappropriate under the circumstances because this applicant and any successor owner of this property should be able to and is entitled to rely upon the prior determination for any future application.
Okay.
That's all.
That's it. Okay. So we did reach out to the Rayner Group, who is now doing some work for the village, and there is a construction protocol that we're going to need for this. So I think I'm good with everything on this application at this point. I think if we can have the village engineer and the lead building inspector sign off on the construction protocol, I'm fine to move ahead with this. Anybody else on the board have any other objections or issues here?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Rose?
So when we visited the property for to inspect and review, the attorney for the applicant indicated that as part of the application and part of the addressing of the issues, they were prepared to remove all the intrusions into the dune other than those being applied for, specifically the lights, lights that are have been violated, but are the structures that are in the dune that are not conforming. So I assume that is that representation continues to be valid, and I would like to see it reflected in both the determination of the zoning board of the ZBA and acknowledged by the applicant.
All right, I have it on Zoom. I have it on Zoom for you. I have it on Zoom for you. Just bring that in.
Excuse me.
I'm going to turn it off.
Len, can I speak to this?
Sure.
We're prepared to see the removal of those lighting structures in the dunes as a condition for the grant of the variances here. And Mr. Chair, I just wanted to say that the applicant is prepared to produce or supplement or modify its construction protocol as required by the building inspector and the village engineer when they apply for a building permit. They wouldn't be able to do so now because they haven't engaged a contractor.
Okay. Billy, anybody else have any comments?
Just one further comment, because I think we can act on this without having to, that our action, just want to be clear, does not involve, does not require agreeing with all the grounds as requested by the applicant in terms of the interpretations. But the applicant has made their representations and their arguments in terms of why they believe they have a hardship, what the calculations are. ZBA is not constrained by that. We're making our determination.
I don't know who's talking in the background, but it's please don't do that. Please put your microphones on mute. Thank you. Does anybody else want to be heard regarding this application?
Just to clarify, so that I'm on the same page. So if we approve this before the building permit issues, the construction protocols must be reviewed and approved by both the village engineer and the building inspector. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. No one else?
Yeah, if we could, Mr. Chairman, I didn't want to interrupt any members of the board. If you wanted to turn to members of the public, we would like to be heard.
Yeah, just state your name, Brian, and
Yeah, no problem. It's hard to tell who else was up next. Yes, Brian Matthews from Matthews, Kirsten, Cooley, here on behalf of the neighboring property owners, Jeffrey and Marjorie Rosen. They're the owners of 41 Lily Pond Lane, which lies to the north, and is a property that the 33 Lily Pond property has to take access over in order for egress and ingress. Obviously we've had concerns about this application, going back a couple of years now, and certainly this application is a scaled back version of what was originally proposed and what is the subject of the ongoing litigation. But, at this point, going through the concerns of the village's consulting engineer, I think we would agree that, there's some incompleteness to it now, particularly with some of the components of the survey and the site plan. But obviously, one of their critical concerns is the construction protocol as it relates to the access way and the roadway that is part of their property. I think, being as how that was raised to the engineer, or raised by the engineer, and his conclusion that the application as it sits right now is incomplete, what I think would be perhaps particularly because of the level of involvement that this application, this property has had for the couple of years, that it would be maybe a better way to proceed to have that protocol prepared and submitted, and to have these neighbors the ability to take a look at it and discuss it with the board, versus closing the record of this application and just perhaps moving it forward to an approval, and then having to deal with the construction protocol issue with the engineer and the building inspector at some later time.
Okay. Well, I hear what you're saying, but I think the board is ready to move on to close this hearing.
We would ask if we could have time to put in a written submission. I mean, there was, a 200-page submission put in just about a week or so ago. So we would like to reserve the right to put in a written response to that.
Yeah, I think that's okay. I think we're going to close. I want to close the hearing. I think my board wants to close the hearing. Does anybody else have any objections?
No.
I have a question, Mr. Chair, just in
Go ahead.
terms of will the neighbors have the opportunity to submit to the appropriate village officials any comments regarding the construction protocol?
Beth,
leave aside
Billy, can they weigh in on any of that? Or Beth, is that, is that allowable? Beth?
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to unmute.
Okay.
I'm not sure what their agreements are as far as is it an easement? Is it, how is that set up as far as access?
The access is what is the roadway, to use that term loosely, of Tides Turn Lane, that is used for access for both 41 Lily Pond, 37 Lily Pond, which is the property in the middle, and the 33 property. Tides Turn Lane isn't actually a roadway itself. It is access easements back and forth, but the roadbed, if you will, is owned by each individual property owner. It's part of their property. It's not even a separate roadway. It's not a flag strip. It's anything. It's their actual property.
Is there any, agreement amongst the property owners that they have to, return the road to?
No, there's not. And, obviously it's a critical component and critical concern for them throughout this. And, from the way we've gone about this application for the last couple of years, the construction protocol for all of this has been a pretty strong component that this board has always required, that the village planner is always required to have a full and complete construction protocol to get an understanding of how this is all going to be done. So if that protocol is not yet complete by the village engineer's understanding, to me, I think it's a little bit premature to close the hearing and not give the concerned public the opportunity to review that and actually weigh in on it in front of this board. Certainly, at the very least, in a written submission that would find its way into the record.
Mr. Chairman, might I be heard?
Yes.
The construction protocol that was submitted is the same one that's been on file with the board for quite some time. It isn't a new submission. It was recently reported on by the village engineer, Mr. Gaudiello, but it's been submitted for quite some time. And why it is that Mr. Matthews hasn't submitted anything he cares to with respect to it months ago, I don't understand.
You have the village engineer saying that it's incomplete.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Everybody can talk.
We don't want to keep the hearing open. In addition, I will simply say that there's a private easement that governs the rights of Mr. Matthews' clients in this regard. And if he's entitled to, on behalf of his clients, to say something about the construction protocol at the appropriate time, he'll certainly have that right, because he will have a private right, but it's not a right that this board is required to or even may protect in its own determinations, because the private rights of landowners with respect to easements are not this board's business, with respect.
I would, if I could have just a moment, I would agree with that and disagree with that at the same time. I don't think it's the impact on neighboring property owners is certainly something that this board takes into consideration. And I think at this point, these neighboring property owners have made clear their concerns. So again, we think that the construction protocol by the village engineer's own comments is incomplete. There should be an opportunity to review and comment on what is deemed to then to be a complete application and a complete construction protocol. And again, we would ask that it be put over to the March hearing. But if the board is not inclined to do that, we would ask, as would be standard practice from my experience in front of this board, the opportunity to put a written submission in prior to the formal close of the record.
I think the village engineer and both the village engineer and the village building inspector will be reviewing the protocol prior to the issuance of any building permit. And I highly doubt that either one of them would sign off on a protocol that would some way be detrimental to the other property owners. I think the building inspectors themselves and the engineer are looking specifically, as you noted, at the access. So obviously that is on their radar. So I think that is a concern that they're all aware of. And I think that would be something that, will be addressed prior to any sign off of the protocol.
Anybody else have any comments?
Sorry, Beth. I understand. So we would just renew that request for a short time to put in a written submission, please.
So I'd like to make a motion.
May I say something?
Yes.
As the neighbor?
Can you please state your name? We got to swear.
My name is Jeffrey Rosen. We own the property at 41 Lily Pond Lane. We, in fact, are at the end of Tides Turn
Rosen?
Can
Lane.
you help Mr. Rosen?
Yes.
You have to sworn in. You have to be sworn.
Go ahead.
Please raise your right hand and state your name and address for the record.
My address in East Hampton or New York? Or both?
Wherever.
Go ahead. Jeffrey A. Rosen, 41 Lily Pond Lane, East Hampton.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
May I
Thank
be
you.
sworn in too? I'm Marjorie Rosen. I'm also the property owner.
And your
ahead.
address?
41 Lily Pond Lane, East Hampton.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Rosen.
I just have one comment, which is, I think we have just one comment, which is I'd just like to underscore the points that our attorney, Mr. Matthews, has made. To date, the people who've submitted the request of the Starks have shown no interest or no concern for the impact on Tides Turn Lane of the extensive construction which they're proposing to carry out. I think, as Mr. Matthews has made clear, it has the risk for potential damage. There are ways to deal with it. There are ways to get to an agreement. So far, they've shown no interest in having that agreement, which is why I think Mr. Matthews' comments are most important. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosen. Mrs. Rosen, would you like to say anything?
Yes, I would. When the application was first submitted to your board, and we understood that because this is an easement, as it has been documented, we own most of Tides Turn Lane. Mr. Matthews reached out to Mr. Ackerman to please talk to the Starks so that we could sit down and go over what would be involved protecting everybody's property. As Mr. Matthews probably, I don't want to speak for him, but I recall Mr. Matthews reporting back to us that the Starks said, why do we need to talk to them? They completely dismissed us. And we've had a history of issues with the Starks over the years that it has been disrespectful of our property.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Rosen. Anybody else?
Is it appropriate for Mr. Chair, for the board just to request that the appropriate village officials in reviewing the construction protocol pay attention to the impact on the surrounding neighborhood?
I did speak with the engineer on this, and he's well aware of the access to the Starks residence. So I think the construction protocol is going to take that into consideration. It's one of the first things he mentioned to me. So I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing.
So move.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Let's move on to the new hearings. Pam, can you please?
Mhm. Application of Wendy R. Sirkin and Andrew E. Goldstein, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 301-1315 for area variances from Chapter 278 zoning to construct a shed and make alterations to an existing residence. A 20-foot variance is requested from Section 278 3A5B to construct a shed 0 feet from the rear yard lot line where the required side yard setback is 20 feet. A 2.3-foot variance is requested from Section 278 3A4A to make alterations to a legally pre-existing non-conforming residence located 31.7 feet from the rear yard lot line where the required rear yard setback is 34 feet and any other relief necessary. The subject property is 40,054 square feet in area and is located at 87 Jericho Road in Residence District R80. This project is classified as a Type 2 action in accordance with SEQA.
Okay, I'm going to sit off this application. Jim McMullen's going to lead us on this. Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you, John. Is Mr. Goldstein here to give his presentation?
Yes, good morning, Andrew Goldstein. First, let me acknowledge that we understand that the size of the setback variance for the shed is large, but it really is the minimum that, and it's not 0 feet, it will be 2 feet actually from the property line. It's really the smallest variance that we could ask for in order to give us a location for the shed that's unobtrusive and would also allow us not to have to destroy large trees and mature planting on the property. And I guess we'd asked if you could, appreciate that and as you consider the variance.
Mr. Goldstein, I think my concern is the 2 feet off the property line for the shed. If for some reason a storm or some type of mishap happens and this piece of, let's say the wall of the shed needs to be repaired or addressed, there really isn't enough room with the 2 feet to gain access without being on the neighbor's property. So that's one of my biggest concerns. If we could go to 4 or 5 feet, I think that would be much better. A person could get in there, maintain the side of the shed, or at least repair it if needed.
We could do 4 feet. I mean, that would be fabulous if we could do 4 feet, because it avoids having to, there's a matured plant sort of that gives us a room to clear that.
Yeah, I've been on the property and I've seen the landscaping, which you have very nice landscaping, and I see what you're saying and what would be impacted. Does anyone else on the board have a comment?
Yes, I'd like to speak. I find it hard, somewhat inconceivable on an acre of property that you can't find a more conforming location. The request for 100% variance is very substantial. I see you have another shed on there that's 12.8 feet off. I would be comfortable with, at a minimum 10 feet off the property line. I went over there and took a look at it also. Those are my comments, and I follow with what Jim is saying, the ability to get behind the shed, service the shed, pop a ladder there at an angle that's acceptable to get up on the roof to fix it if need be. I just don't think 100% variance is acceptable, and I think you could find a more conforming location to place the shed.
Well, can I just say one thing to that, if I might? It's just to correct it. it's not 100%, it's 90%. Whatever variance is being granted, it's being granted for 12 feet of length along a 216-foot property line. But also in terms of the conforming location, that is really the only place that can be, that shed can be located, is that alley right there, which doesn't require a tree being cut down. Indeed, that tree would have to be cut down. That tree is a snake bark maple tree. It's we've been told by Ray Smith, who does the longhouse plantings, it's the only tree he's ever seen of that kind in East Hampton. We have 3 of them in that area. And we'd like to save it. That tree is exactly 20 feet from the property line. So if we move out 10 feet, that tree has to be cut down.
And one more question, Mr. Goldstein. This shed will have no plumbing, no electric, correct? It's just a shed?
Plumbing and electric, I need to house my, no plumbing and electric. No, it's going to have outlets because I want to be able to charge battery powered.
I know what you're saying, yeah.
And it's going to have a light because sometimes you need a light, but it's not going to have any plumbing.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Craig, do you have anything to say?
The tree that Andy's talking about is in the setback, so that.
Well, no, the tree that little tree, the thinner tree, is exactly 20 feet. So if I go out, I tried to find a place that I could put this shed that I didn't have to come to you. And so I'm looking for 120 square feet of unobstructed space, and I don't have it except for that spot. It's hard to believe. As you go around the property, I frankly, I didn't want to try for come within 20 feet of the rear yard because my fence there is a see-through fence, and he would see the shed. I thought he might object to that. The guy on the property on the other side, it's really completely obscured. But it's because of the trees. It's not possible really. And frankly, we were talking about a matter of, 4 feet would give me the opportunity. 4 feet is enough for that shed to be maintained in the event of a problem arising. I'm not sure and let me just say, that's exactly, that is at around 4 feet, maybe the ladder there would be roughly, that's with a 4 or 5 foot, 5 feet. I have a problem with that plant. But as you look back there, you see the trees, the large trees that make it difficult for us to make it impossible for us really to have any other location. As you move further around the other side of the property, the problem is even worse because the trees are larger. The plantings are, some of those, there are rhododendron back there that are 60 years old that one or more would have to be removed. I don't think that there's a real parallel to the other shed on the property. It's just a different location. And there was actually a shed in that location on the property when I bought the house 30 years ago. So again, I think that I appreciate the concern about my ability to maintain the shed, and I think 4 feet would do it and not create an obtrusive location for the shed.
So, Craig, do you have an opinion?
John? You talking to me?
Yes.
The problem, I sympathize with Andy because they have a beautifully landscaped property, and I walked through it, But this is going to be a shed in setback, and the precedent for this thing is not good.
Can I address precedent, Craig?
Lots of people are going to want to put their sheds in that setback.
Can I address that, Craig?
Yes.
The property is very constrained because it's on a corner and has 2 front yards. And in addition, the house was located 60 years ago at almost double the required front yard setback. So 100 feet from each of the streets. And what that does, if Nikki could put up the survey, it results in thank you. You can see really, I mean, I have, it's probably less than 25% of the property that's available. And you have conditions on the property that militate against any other applicant being able to say that, rely on this application as a precedent for a 2-foot shed. So you're not setting a precedent that I don't think anyone else is going to be able to use.
Okay. Joe, do you have anything to add?
Well, I think both in looking at the application and in hearing the comments, both from the applicant and the other members of the board, I think the issue is it possible to locate the shed without disrupting mature plantings? And I think that's an issue that has to be explored and with plenty. I have not had a chance to walk the property, so I look forward to doing that prior to our action, but I'm sympathetic to both all the points being made. And I think it's a practical question of whether it can be located in the general area without disrupting as conforming as possible without disrupting the mature vegetation. So we'll look at that.
It is definitely tight on that property because of the amount and location of a lot of the landscaping that I've seen on Andy's property. So I do feel for the applicant, but I know you'd like to take a look at it.
Well,
is this something, Beth, that maybe we close the hearing and do the final decision through the work session?
If the board wants to, if any of the board members want to go actually to the property to see it, you would leave the record open. You wouldn't close the hearing.
Okay. Is that something that the board feels necessary to fill? Do you need to go out as well and take a look?
I've already been out.
Okay.
The one comment I have is I'd ask Andy to revise his request to 5 feet off, but that's his choice.
I can do 4 feet off. 5 feet off I'm happy to do 4 feet off. I mean, if you're saying that 1 foot is going to have an adverse effect on neighborhood character, I think that's, I mean, I'm willing to, we're essentially putting the shed, the whole purpose of the extra space is to deal with some kind of maintenance issue. I think we can do that. I don't think that the shed at 4 feet as opposed to 5 feet is go
ahead, I'm sorry.
Andy, this is Lenny. Andy.
Wait, hang on 1 second. Actually, I'm saying that I think there's a conforming location you can put it. I'm asking you, would you like to revise it to 5 feet?
You think there's an alternative location?
That's correct.
That is
the setbacks. That's correct.
Than what we have on the survey?
Yes, that's correct.
Where?
It might not be where you want it, but there is a possibility.
Isn't the test, is it feasible for us to isn't that the test? It's not what you don't live there, I live there. And I'd like to.
And from what the survey is showing,
Andy.
Yeah, Len.
Please, 1 second. Andy, I suggest that we put this off and have an opportunity to have some of the board members who'd like to visit the property and see if we can't come to a consensus.
Yes, I think that's the best approach as well, because I think Joe wants to get out there and look at it a little more closely, and maybe so do other members of the board. So I would ask that we leave the hearing open and adjourn this to the next meeting. How do the other board members feel?
I appreciate that. I'm fine with that.
Can I have a motion then?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second it to move along.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'm going to return the meeting back to John.
Okay, so we have, the next hearing is B&G Development H LLC, 39 Conklin Terrace. Ms. Bennett?
Application of BG Development H LLC, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 301-1334.1 for a variance from Chapter 250 Streets and Sidewalks to allow 2 driveway curb cuts. A variance is requested from Section 250-23B8 to permit the installation of 2 driveway curb cuts where the subject property is limited to 1 driveway curb cut leading to Conklin Terrace. The subject property is 19,310 square feet in area and is located at 39 Conklin Terrace in Residence District R40. This project is classified as a Type 2 action in accordance with SEQA.
Is the applicant present?
Good evening, good morning, members of the board. Brian DeSessa, attorney for the applicant. Thank you for hearing me this morning. The property again is at 39 Conklin Terrace. We're here under Chapter 250-23C. Sub 2 is the criteria that I want to talk to the board about this morning. Specifically A, to start with, whether there will be an adverse impact on the public safety. I would submit to you that the 2 curb cuts actually increases the public safety in preventing cars from having to back out of the driveway. Conklin Terrace, as the board I'm sure is aware, is a dead end. This property is located almost at the end of the cul-de-sac for Conklin Terrace, so it's not a through street. So in terms of public safety or safety concern, the avoidance of backing cars out on the circular driveway would be a benefit. Under criteria B, would there be any adverse impact on traffic? No. The residence, it's a single family residence. The establishment of the circular driveway or 2 curb cuts does not increase the intensity of a single family use, nor would it permit additional cars under the single family use to be there. It actually moves cars from parking on the street, which is a narrower street. Will there be an adverse impact on the environment? No, because we're not taking any existing trees down. We're not increasing any kind of use or occupancy. We're not changing rainwater discharge or runoff or anything along those lines. Would there be an adverse impact on the ability for the village to maintain and improve the right-of-way or its public right-of-way? No, because none of the improvements are into the village right-of-way, nor would they obstruct the village in the administration of that at any point, the highway department, that is. And whether there would be an adverse impact on future development of the area. No, the installation of the 2 curb cuts does not provide for an increased density, nor does it prohibit any neighbor or adjoining area, adjoining resident or the village from doing any kind of development later. And whether the grant of this would be in the best interest of the community, I would say yes, because it's, again, going back to A, for purposes of safety, we're not backing cars out. It has been screened and planted. And it's from what the applicant perceives as it's a better way to enter and exit a driveway on a residential street. Will have no impact on traffic flow or the safety of the neighborhood. Wouldn't impact the village's ability to put a sidewalk in, should the village endeavor to do that at a later date. And due to the unique nature of this lot, in terms of how it's with its width, with its L-shaped across the back, this would be the minimum amount that the applicant would be looking for. The lot size is fixed. There is not a traffic safety or other concern. So I would ask this board for a waiver under the Chapter 250-23 for the installation of the 2 driveways.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Any board members want to chime in on this to start?
Yes, John?
Yes, Craig.
Well, first of all, it says in the code that you can't have more than one curb cut.
Yes, sir.
Second of all, I think the issue here is whether or not a car can turn around in a lot that's configured with only one curb cut. If the curb cut, the second curb cut in this case is eliminated, and a portion of the driveway that goes into that curb cut is used to make a small turnaround in the front of the house without going all the way to the front door, they've got a turnaround and no second curb cut.
I totally understand, and I agree with your analysis on this. So, anybody else like to comment?
So this is Philip. I'd like to comment. You know, I don't know how many years the house that was there existed with one driveway without issue. As Brian pointed out, it's a dead-end street, so even backing out onto the street is not an issue there. I live on Newtown Lane where it is somewhat of an issue, but you know, there's minimal traffic down there. So, and as Craig said, the code allows only for one curb cut. So that's my opinion.
Thanks, Phil. Anybody, Joe, would you like to comment, or Jimmy?
I agree with Craig. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Mr. Rose?
I agree with the other board members.
Anybody out there any comments from anyone else online here?
Currently, there's no callers on the line.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, so I make a motion to close the hearing.
I'll make a motion.
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Brian.
Very good. Thank you, board.
Okay, Ms. Bennett, on to the last hearing of the day, please.
Application of Sanford Robertson, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 301-10-119 for area variances from Chapter 278 zoning to construct additions to an existing residence and make alterations to accessory structures. A 617 square foot variance is requested from Section 278-3A-13A to permit a residence containing 5,674 square feet of gross floor area where the maximum permitted gross floor area is 5,057 square feet. The legally pre-existing residence contains 5,293 square feet of gross floor area. A 6.3-foot variance is requested from Section 278-3A-4A to construct an addition 27.7 feet from the side yard lot line where the required setback is 34 feet. A 4.3-foot variance is requested from Section 278-3D6 to permit the installation of a cupola/weather vane resulting in a detached garage containing a height of 24.3 feet where the maximum permitted height of a detached garage is 20 feet. A 6-foot variance is requested from Section 278-3A-5C to make alterations to a pool house building located 34 feet from the rear yard lot line where the required setback is 40 feet. A 4.8-foot variance is required from Section 278-3A-5A and a variance from Section 278-3A-5F to make alterations to a garage located 50.2 feet from the front yard lot line where the required setback is 55 feet, to make alterations to a detached garage located in the front yard area and any other relief necessary. The subject property is 40,818 square feet in area and is located at 130 Further Lane in Residence District R160. This project is classified as a Type 2 action in accordance with SEQA.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. Mr. Ackerman?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, John.
Yep.
This application has been amended to reduce the sought-after variances. The cupola variance is no longer being requested. There are also, as you know, approval for curb cut that we filed from the Highway Department, as well as neighbor support letters. This is an interesting application in that when this house was renovated in 2014, it was conforming as to GFA. However, in the amendment of our zoning code in 2015, although the GFA was slightly reduced, permitted GFA was slightly reduced, the double height ceiling rule added an additional amount of GFA to the house without any change. You know, this is what we would call by operation of law, they lost GFA. We therefore, in conjunction with the design work of the architects, by the way, Dan Shepard from Peter Marino is online, as are the clients, Mr. and Mrs. Robertson. We recaptured an amount of GFA and basically clawed back 215 square feet. So the substantive application here is with respect to the enclosure of the balcony. The additional small GFA with respect to the elevator is, in our view, probably inadvertently a mistake that was made in the adoption of our ADL law when GFA was not considered, although setbacks and coverage were eliminated from the law. Mr. Robertson is one of those individuals who, at 81 years of age, I respect because he's substantially older than I am and has more energy than I have. And he needs, however, to have both the privacy of an office area to work from, as well as elevator access, you know, to reach the second floor of the house as the years progress. So with respect to the enclosure of the balcony, we're only really asking for a net 6% variance for the GFA, for the net change being 311 square feet. I think this is not a substantial request. I think the welcoming Mr. and Mrs. Robertson to East Hampton should come with the approval of this application. The architect's available if you have any questions, as are Mr. and Mrs. Robertson.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ackerman. Philip, you want to lead us out on this?
Sure. Before I start, is there any member of the public that would like to make a comment on this application? Do we have any callers on the line?
No callers on the line.
Okay. So while I definitely sympathize with the applicants, sure. While I sympathize with the applicant's need for the elevator and the reconfiguring of the driveway and the enclosure of the second story porch, my concern is the applicant purchased this property in August, knowing of this year, 2020 rather, knowing full well what the limitations were. You know, if the elevator was so important, perhaps they should have found a place with an elevator. I don't think the elevator is the minimum variance necessary because you can place the elevator within the footprint of the house. You're already going through, you know, you're going to walk through the den to get to the elevator. And then when you come out, you're going to walk through his and hers dressing room, I believe. So I think the elevator can go within the footprint of the home. I wouldn't be surprised if when Dan Scotti designed this home that there was space somewhere within the home for an elevator chute. With regard to relocating the doors for the garage, I think the village passed the law that they no longer wanted garages in the front yard. I'm not sure the genesis of that, but I'm sure part of it was not to see garage doors facing the street. So that's my other concern. I have really no concern about the covered walkway or the enclosed balcony on the second story.
Okay, any, Jimmy or Mr. Rose, or who'd like to chime in?
Go ahead, Jim.
Go ahead, Joe.
No, you first, Mr. Vice Mayor.
As we said on the last application with the two curb cuts, and kind of opening this up to, again, having another issue.
Jimmy,
go ahead.
Jimmy, can I just interrupt? The curb cut has nothing to do with us now. Curb cut was issued by David Collins, the Village Highway Department. So he's already granted it, so they don't need relief from us on that.
Right, but it does affect the garage doors flipping towards the street side. Obviously, there's plenty of room on this property for screening and stuff. So if it was well screened, then I wouldn't have a problem with the garage doors shifting towards the front. I don't have a problem enclosing the second floor balcony area as well as the covered walkway. The elevator, I'm not sure if that's really the end-all, be-all location that is the only spot welcoming or available. I think that could be revisited.
Joe, would you like to say anything?
I'm sympathetic to the comments made, but I don't understand what the hardship is that necessitates the cupolas on top of the garage and the pool house.
It's been withdrawn.
They withdrew those earlier. Mr. Ackerman did.
Did I miss that? Okay. Thank
you.
Terrific. Great.
I understand the elevator. I'm not an architect, so I don't want to design where you put the elevator, but I don't really have any issues with this application at this point. I do believe if we could get a little more screening out front, Mr. Ackerman, so we don't have to look at garage doors. I don't know if that's possible to do.
Well, that certainly we can do. Sure.
Okay. I don't know do we want them to maybe just look at where the elevator should go, a different place?
I think if I can suggest, I think the points made by Phil are good. It may be, if there is in fact no practical alternative, then that becomes an issue that I think we have to address. But I'm sympathetic to the concern. The desire to have and perhaps the need for an elevator does not necessarily translate into the location of putting it into the setback area. So
if I may,
requires further examination.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Ackerman.
Yeah, Joe raises a good point. But let me just say this with respect to the elevator, and we could ask the architect to speak to that. It needs to be outside for purposes of gaining access. That's one reason. And two, the architects explored all the alternatives to see if we could find an alternative location. And I certainly asked him to speak to that. But I also want to point out that under the American Disabilities Act, it's clear that the village intended to eliminate from the requirements of both coverage and setbacks, and inadvertently left out the GFA. They could not have intended to allow an elevator within a setback and in excess of coverage and not included in GFA. And what we're talking about here is 70 square feet. And even if that number is correct, it's the shaft way. I mean, to focus on the elevator, I think is not reasonable. It's not sensible, and we don't have to show a hardship. The hardship is obvious, and I'd like to, if Mr. Chair.
Yes. Why don't you have the architect just speak on it real quick?
Could you, Dan? Can you just, if you would, just explore what some of the when you reviewed. Did you review any other alternative locations that were conforming for the elevator? Why is the elevator located in this particular?
Excuse me, Mr. Ackerman?
Wait, just 1 second, Linda. Hey, Dan, are you on? Dan?
Yes, Dan is here.
Okay, Dan, would you mind? You've heard this.
Let me swear you in.
Dan, Pam's going to swear you in, please.
Hold on now. I'll turn on the video. Hello there.
Hi. Please raise your right hand and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Dan Shepard. I work for Peter Marino Architects. My address is 8924 118th Street in Richmond Hill, New York.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Dan, please.
Okay, so there were multiple, or essentially two locations considered, and kind of the criteria was exterior access from the exterior, and this location was selected because considered to be the least, was one of the reasons it was selected was because it was considered to be very not visible. It didn't impact the visibility from the street. And also another criteria was not interfering with the interior activities of the clients when they were there with their family, and having the least impact on their activities on the inside. And that's kind of how we had arrived at this location. And Nicholas, if you could put up the view from the street, you can see that even though the elevator is in the drawing, it's not noticed, it's not seen. And so this would give you a good indication of how the visual impact from the street is we considered negligible.
And I do have, Mr. Ackerman did provide new packets. I don't know if anybody picked them up at Village Hall, but you cannot see it on the new packet, the new design here. You cannot see it from the street. I agree with that, Mr. Shepard. So,
Linda, did you want to say something? Linda?
Yes, I thought there might be some confusion on the part of the board members. The location of the elevator does not require a side yard variance because the village's enactments have exempted accessibility improvements from setback requirements and from lot coverage. And the location of the elevator shaft here, if you look at the layout, is not only designed to provide access from the interior to other levels of the house, but also includes a pathway that will allow access that will avoid the front entrance, which is not handicapped friendly.
Thank you.
okay, thank you. I don't have any issues on this at this point.
And I appreciate that, and I was confused. So thank you for that clarification.
Okay.
Welcome.
Say something.
Yes, who's talking?
My name is Jane Sakasa. I'm the neighbor to the west.
Hold on, Mrs.
Let me
Scott.
swear you in.
Ma'am, swear you in, please.
Please raise your right hand and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Jane Sakasa, and I live at 3 Windmill Lane.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mrs. Casa.
First, I want to say that we are totally in agreement with the enclosure of the porch. It's not visible from our property. We are fine with that. We only have a question, my husband and I, as to the generator. And we're wondering whether the generator and the proposed pit they seem very close to the property line. And in the sea air where we are, very close to the ocean, noise travels very easily. And we're wondering whether that requires a variance. And so, is there any way that that generator and the pit can be within the building lot requirements and not need a variance?
We haven't asked for a variance. The generator doesn't require a variance. Dan, do you have the specs for the generator? Isn't the generator below ground?
Yes, and specifically, it's in a vault. It's recessed into the ground, and this is totally an acoustical consideration, and it sends the noise directly up rather than out to the sides. And this is greater expense than having it just sitting on the ground or in a shed. And this way, you avoid the visibility of the generator, and the sound is directed straight up.
And Mr. Shepherd, this generator pit location is actually in a conforming location, correct?
That's correct. There is for accessory structures such as this, there is a different setback that is indicated on the survey there, and that is within the setbacks. Yeah.
Thank you.
And Mr. Casa, this is Lenny Ackerman. If you have any problems with the noise from this generator, you call me personally. Okay. And I'll give you my cell number. Mr. and Mrs. Robertson are the nicest people in the world. I know them personally. My daughter works for them. They would not want you to be discomforted in any way. We will, if there is an issue, we will take care of it without any question.
Is there anybody else? Go ahead.
If I may, one comment.
Go ahead, Dan.
Is to keep in mind about the emergency generators. They run in times of emergency and once a week for 15 minutes for lubrications.
Okay.
And other than that, they sit there silently.
And just maybe the neighborly thing is to run the exercise the generator during the week when people aren't around. That would be great. So,
So John, I have a comment.
Go ahead, Phil.
Now that Linda cleared that up, I'm fine with the plan.
Okay.
Okay. I think we can close the hearing. Make a motion.
So
Make a
move.
motion.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. If there's no other business, we'd like to close the meeting. Like make a motion.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Enjoy the day, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.